All right, everyone, it's 3 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order of the Burke County Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting. Again, we'll be meeting by virtual Zoom here at 3 o'clock on May the 5th. Let me welcome everyone again to our Zoom meeting. At this time, I want to do a roll call. Vice Chair Colway.
Present.
Commissioner Abley.
Here.
Commissioner Britton.
Present.
Commissioner Taylor.
Present.
County Manager Steen, who has his sound off.
There you go. I'm here.
Oh, Finance Officer Pierce.
Yes, present.
County Attorney J.R. Simpson.
Present.
All right. Thank you all for being here. At this time, if you have any phones or anything laying around on your desk, if I could ask you to turn those off, I would appreciate it. Let me make one little announcement and say happy Cinco de Mayo Day. Cinco de Mayo is an annual celebration held on May the 5th. This date is observed to commemorate the Mexican Army's victory over the French Empire at the Battle of Puebla on May the 5th, 1862, under the leadership of General Ignacio Zaragoza. So if y'all think I'm smart, I'm not. Kay wrote all that down for me. So, but really happy Cinco de Mayo Day is celebrated heavily here in Burke County. All right, gentlemen, in front of you today is the agenda. The TDA financial report was sent via email during this past week and was added to the agenda. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved, Mr.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chairman Moe.
Affirmative.
Commissioner Abley.
Yes.
Commissioner Britton.
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor.
Yes.
And I say yes. So that's unanimous, Kay. Moving on to our presentations, our Animal Services Center Pet of the Month, and that is going to be presented by Caitlin Settlemeyer, our Animal Services Director. So take it away, Caitlin.
Hey, so we will be presenting another cat and dog this coming month for our commissioners meeting. Last month, both Sunny and Kanga were adopted, so this has been a really great thing. So we're hoping to keep up the good work.
Excellent. Anyone have any questions for Caitlin? All right, without objection, this item will remain on the May 19th agenda. Kay has asked that I do a roll call on each agenda item anyway. So Commissioner Mulway.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley.
Yes.
Commissioner Britton.
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor.
Yes.
And myself. That'll be unanimous, Kay. Moving on to item number 2 is our TDA, Tourist Development Agency. Our financial update for the period ending on March the 31st, 2020, and that's going to be presented by Ed Phillips, our TDA Director. Hey, Ed.
Hey there, how are you guys?
Doing good.
Good.
So you have in front of you a balance sheet for March 31st, and also a year actual for budget, actual versus budget. And we've had a great year so far. However, we can tell you that March was down. Occupancy tax collections in March were down 60% over the previous year. February was down, and we also had a hotel that did not remit the full amount due. And the finance office, tax office is working on collecting that.
All right, everyone, you've heard Ed's report. Anybody got any questions for Ed?
Mr. Chairman, a couple, I guess, you're showing a minus 46, Ed, and I guess that's from the circumstances we have very little to do with right now. But anyhow, do you anticipate a losing proposition by the end of the year? And if so, I guess the question is, what are we doing to address it?
Yes, we do. We're going to have, our budget called for $607,000 in occupancy tax revenue in this current fiscal year. We will probably be down somewhere in the 400, 450 range. And we do have fund balance that's going to cover us through that period. We have cut back on all expenses, all costs, marketing, advertising, public relations, office expenses, travel, all of that has been cut back to essentially zero. So we're doing everything we can to preserve our budget for recovery marketing when that happens and we're back, folks are back open to travel and get back to Burke County.
So everything's going to end up okay. Not what we wanted, but okay.
We hope so. If we get back on track in the summertime or late summer, we'll be fine.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? All right, hearing none without any objection, we're going to leave this on the agenda. So I'll start out with our roll call. Vice Chairman Mulwee,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes, sir.
and yes from myself, so that'd be unanimous, Kay. Moving on to our scheduled public hearings, which would be item number 4 from Burke Development, Inc. There is a building reuse grant and local economic development grant for Project Refresh and a public hearing. At this time, I'll recognize Alan Wood from BDI to make a presentation regarding Project Refresh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners and everyone else on the call. Project Refresh, we've been working on this since September. They are looking at building on Ceramic Tile Drive. It used to be Ice River Springs. The proposal is for them to come in, take ownership of that building, put in new production lines, invest approximately $18.5 million on top of the purchase price, and over a period of 5 years, create 226 jobs. There is a building reuse grant for $500,000 that has been submitted. There is also a 1NC for $500,000. The 1NC does require local match. For that local match, we are asking the city of Morganton and Burke County to do a grant versus new tax base of 60% of the new property taxes created for a period of 5 years. From the county's perspective, that would be roughly, if all 18.5 million turned out and was taxable, that'd be roughly $77,100 and some dollars a year for that 5-year period, totaling a little over $385,000, which would cover the required match. Also, for the building reuse, there is a requirement that there's a 5% local match for that, which would be $12,500 from Burke County and the city of Morganton. And we are supposed to be on Morganton's agenda June the 1st for approval of their match share of this as well. All jobs will pay on average above the current Burke County average. I think it's 36,801 is the average, and their average pay will be above that number. They would like to be in operation by late this fall, early winter. So they are moving forward full speed ahead with their plans on this facility.
All right, thank you, Alan, for that report. Gentlemen and ladies, any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I had one question, then I wanted to make a comment that had nothing to do with this, but it does have something to do with these kind of programs. I guess my question basically is, Alan, what kind of education or skills will be required to fill those jobs? And are we satisfied we got them already?
Well, it's a similar company to what was in there. So some of the people who were there previously,
Okay.
it's a larger number. There's going to be some skilled technicians required for maintenance. Their machinery and equipment is more automated. We are pretty well set because of our manufacturing base to have these kind of employees, and because our community college is very capable of training, we already have the programs in place or are readily adaptable to handle this.
Good, good. The next question, I guess, goes to Brian and Margaret. Several times in the past, I've requested, kind of once a year, a summary, and being we're getting into budget season, Mr. Chairman, it would be nice to have a recap of those programs we have ended, and was it successful? Did we complete it? And we'd like to know the ones that faulted, and would like to know the impact it has on the budget for the year of how many dollars is going to assist our citizens in getting jobs in good paying positions. And I think that'd be a good thing we could brag on a little bit, if you get my drift.
All righty, we'll take care of that. Margaret and Kay, if you will join me later, we'll sit down and make a plan on how we put that together and get that out as quickly as we can, okay? All righty. Any other questions or comments for Alan? All right, hearing none, we'll now take a vote to leave on the agenda. Vice Chairman Mulvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and myself, yes, Kay, that will be unanimous. Thank you so much. Moving on to our consent agenda, which is item number 5. We'll now have a presentation from Burke County Public Schools for the financial data for the period ending March the 31st, 2020, and that's going to be presented by Keith Lawson, Burke County Public Schools Finance Officer. Hello, Keith.
Hello. I hope you ladies and gentlemen are doing well. I've attempted to share my screen. I don't know if I was successful.
You did.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to present the third quarter financial results for Burke County Public Schools. As previously presented in second and first quarters, our annual revenues are first shown here. First column would be the previous year of total revenues projected of $109.7 million. We have not changed our forecasted projected revenues for the year, so we're still at $109.9 million. Moving over to the right under the March year-to-date header, we have the previous column, and again, that would be through 3 quarters of operations for last fiscal year, and then our current column would be our current operations, obviously. I'll just draw your attention to the very bottom of those 2 columns, and you will see that we are about $460,000 in total revenues in comparison to the previous year. Slide number 2. Drill down to a little more detail, specifically our local budget. As you all are accustomed to seeing, we have the previous year's operations there as a comparison. I'll draw your attention to the right under 1920. You can see that our total budget for the year is $16,299,203. You can see our results through three quarters. As far as our local budget goes, through 3 quarters, we were exactly on target as where we had forecasted. As a matter of fact, it's virtually the same numbers as the first 3 quarters of the previous year. Obviously, we contributed $38,000 to the local fund balance last year. My projections would be at this point in time, a lot of the COVID impact to our financials at this point still unknown, is that we're going to be in about that same position for, again, ending this fiscal year. So with that being said, I'll entertain any questions anyone may have.
All right, gentlemen, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I just asked one. He made the comment that did not realize the impact the virus would have on his budget yet. But shouldn't we have a little bit of savings? We don't have kids in school. We don't have teachers in school. I know they're still being paid, but there ought to be some discounts and savings on power bills and maybe some meals and I don't know. It just, do you anticipate a good bit of, I know the sales tax impact is going to be a pretty good amount since we're down about 60% on retail sales. So you think that's going to impact you negatively in a big number?
Well, we will experience some savings due to facilities being at minimal operations as far as HVAC and you know those usages. We are operating 5 daycare sites in the county. Office staff on a very limited basis are still working in the schools. But yeah, we will experience some savings there. Our greater impact we anticipate to be next fiscal year and the year after. We anticipate, based on our 09 experience, when we had that last recession in 09, the state reduced us by $6.9 million a year. That year, state projected revenues were down 15%. Projections for the impact of COVID are state revenues to be down 10%, plus the delay of about $2 billion additional dollars being collected due to the extension of the tax filing deadline. So our great impact we anticipate to be about $4 million next year, and possibly that or more even the year after. So we are very strategically planning. We, of course, put into place a hiring freeze at the genesis of all of this. So we are currently holding 30 vacant positions in the hopes that next year and the year after, when we're really starting to feel the financial impact of all of this, that reductions can hopefully be minimal.
Good, I appreciate that.
All right, any other questions or comments for Keith? Hearing none, we'll now take our roll call vote to leave this on the consent agenda. Vice Chairman Mulway,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and myself, yes, Kay, that will be unanimous. Okay, thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, item number 2 from Western Piedmont Community College is presentation of the financial data for the period ending March 31st, 2020, presented by Sandy Holman, the WPCC Chief Financial Officer. Good afternoon, Sandy.
Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes, ma'am, just fine.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kay, for sharing the screen. If you'll look, we are going to go over the finances through March 30th, 2020. We'll look first at our state funds, where our formula budget was $13,957,487, with additional allocations through this time of $859,200. So our state budget through March 30th is $14,816,687, and we've spent 71.4% of that budget. This is actual expenditures through March, so there's many things that are still encumbered for the rest of the year, even though we're now in a spending restriction for the remainder of this fiscal year. The next 3 columns in light blue represent the county budget and actual expenditures. Our county budget again is $2,613,155, and we have spent 64.9% of this budget. We've got several projects ongoing the rest of the year and several encumbrances, but a few things that we have been doing since the beginning of March is really cutting back on many things, trying to have some cost savings, because again, as Keith mentioned, we don't know what's going to go on with the COVID-19 and where we're going to be next year and the year after that. So we're trying to save where we can with some vacant positions and doing without something that we were going to purchase. Also, we are saving some fund balance for the roof replacement over Patton Hall and E building. The county commissioners have given us allocation of $150,000 for this year for the roof. I am happy to say the bids came in at just a little bit less than that. we're looking at a total of $269,450. So we will have the fund balance to pay for the remainder of that roof. That will happen starting over the summer and finish before the fall semester begins. The final three columns show our institutional budget with a total budget of $5,416,497. And as you can see, we have spent most of that budget because fall spring semesters are our largest in regards to financial aid and bookstore, which make up 75 to 80% of the institutional budget. So for the total combined college budget for 1920, we have spent 70.1% for the third quarter of this year and seem to be on track, and we'll have some funds left over at the end of the year. Again, moving forward into fiscal year 2021 and 2022, where we'll be dealing with some expected budget cuts from the state, definitely. The next slide that you'll see is the breakdown of expenditure categories for county expenditures, with the major expenditure categories, as usual, being salaries and benefits at 26.9% of our budget, utilities at 27.2% of our budget, and contracted services at 17% of our budget. I'll be happy to answer any questions on the budget through March 30th.
Gentlemen, any questions for on this presentation?
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be only fair to ask Sandy the same question we did the school board, and that is basically what would be the negative and the positive of the impact of the virus. And she had already alluded to some things they were doing to save money and that might help them. But anyhow, do you have a handle yet on what the impact, especially negative, that the sales tax may have and the budget for next year?
As I mentioned with the positives, we are saving money in a variety of areas, mainly being in salaries and benefits, and then also reducing some of the projects that we were planning to do this year just to save some cost. The negative being we do anticipate the state budget being drastically reduced. We are expecting money from the CARES Act from the federal level, but again, a big portion of that is going to go to student financial aid, and the institutional portion, there's quite a few restrictions, as you can imagine, with federal money. So we're not quite sure how that's going to help us yet, but we do expect some help there. But the state budget, obviously, with sales tax being reduced drastically, corporate income taxes probably going to be affected, and not knowing exactly what's going to happen until you get into July. We anticipate quite a few negatives from this, but we are preparing early and fully anticipate getting through this and growing, even from the standpoint of hopefully students coming back to work. Our summer registration is going on now, and we currently are almost over halfway there from where we were this time last year. So we do anticipate the numbers for summer being there. We don't quite know how fall is going to come out, but we expect university students that may not go back to the university that may come to Western Piedmont. Hopefully some workers who are unemployed may find their way here if there are some benefits that may cover that. So we are anticipating some gains, but also practicing being conservative to take care of those negatives.
Thank you.
All right, other questions or comments for Sandy? All right, hearing none, we'll take our roll call vote to leave on the consent agenda. Vice Chair Mulway?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And also I vote yes. Okay, Kay, that is unanimous. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 3. Will be some amended bylaws from Partners Behavioral Health Management, and that will be presented by Tara Conrad. Tara, are you with us?
I am. Good afternoon. And thank you for allowing me to come and speak, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I just wanted to inform everyone that Partners, the local managing entity and managed care organization serving Burke County and 8 other surrounding counties, has amended our board bylaws as recommended and to comply with North Carolina General Statute 122C-118.1. The following amendments were approved. Change in term of limits of board members to 2 3-year terms so that partners' bylaws are aligned with the statute. Then the other change was to remove the restriction to the number of seats per county based on population. This was recommended to the board to allow more flexibility to meet the 13 representation requirements that are required in the statute. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
All right, gentlemen, questions for Tara?
Mr. Chairman, no question, but if you gentlemen want to look at page 28, we did add, we remained at 2 for our county. We did not lose any membership from the Burke County by picking up Rutherford County. We need, and as indicated in a previous meeting, we need to decide which one of you wonderful gentlemen is going to be on that board, because my term will end June the 30th.
Commissioner Taylor, you're representing us now. This indicates we have 2. Who is our other representative, Tara?
That just changed recently, and you've Linda somebody, but I can't remember her last name at this moment. But they've got different classifications. They got a field to form this board. Some have got to be doctors, some have got to be people who have kids with mental issues, et cetera, et cetera. But that entire sheet, I'm sure, can be made available to you very quickly.
Yes, so you can have a Board of Commissioners, which is recommended, as well as a Consumer Family Advisory Council, which would be a CFAC member, which would be an individual that has a family member with a disability.
Yes.
That answer your question, Jeff?
Yeah, Tara, do you know who that is for Burke County right now?
No, I will supply that information to you by close of business today.
Okay, that's not necessary.
If I have it, I'm pulling it up right now.
Okay, I was just curious.
All right, any other questions or comments from Tara? All right, hearing none, we'll now do a roll call vote to leave this on the consent item agenda. Vice Chair Mulwee?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Mr. Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Case that will be unanimous. Okay, Tara, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, item number 5 on the consent agenda is a resolution regarding, item number 4 is a resolution regarding rules and procedures for electronic meetings during the COVID-19 state of emergency. I hope you've had an opportunity to look in your packages, see the resolution that was drawn up concerning how we should be operating while COVID-19 virus is still here, as far as doing the types of meetings that we're doing right now. JR has spent a great deal of time along with the School of Government, who has recommended certain things be in this document here. And also this past weekend, the State Senate and the State House also passed some rules and regulations regarding how you should do electronic meetings during the COVID-19. Our resolution may go into a little bit more detail than even what the state has required from us. So JR, I'm going to call upon you at this time to maybe give a little extra summary of what we added in to our resolution beside what the state passed.
Well, we have several different items, but the most salient is that we don't refer to public hearings or quasi-judicial hearings, which the new state law 2020-3 does. So it provides for us there. What we do is we address the question of public participation, and we have provisions in our resolution that the state doesn't address for questions of how the public will participate in our meetings. And for those reasons, ours goes into more detail and does have a provision allowing people to deliver their comments personally or by electronic mail to the county, and then those be read at the main meeting of the county commissioners every month. And then they also have the opportunity to participate by joining the meeting and have their public comments to be read into the at the duly noticed time. So our resolution hasn't been rendered superfluous by the legislature producing and the governor signing state law 2020-3. So it is still an advantage for us to adopt and have these rules ready for the duration of the COVID-19 state of emergency.
All right, great explanation. Gentlemen, any questions for JR or myself? All right, hearing none, we will now go to a roll call vote to leave this on the consent agenda. Vice Chairman Mulwee?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And myself is yes, so that will be unanimous, Kay. Thank you so very much.
Mr.
Moving on
Chairman,
to- Yes.
the name of the CFAC member is Linda McCrary, and she is interested in serving another term.
All right, Linda McCrary.
Yes.
Okay, did you get that, Jeff?
I did.
All righty. Thank you so much, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Moving on to item number 5 is a resolution regarding surplus real property. If you had your agenda to take a look at, there is property that is now owned by the public school, and the Board of Education has determined that this property is surplus and needs to be sold, pending the county's declining to own that property. Those properties being located on Independence Boulevard and South College Street, out on Pax Hill Road and Liberty Street, Honeycutt Drive, and Liberty and Honeycutt, most of those being in Rutherford College, and then the old Morton building, and then out at Pax Hill Road. So those are up, and after speaking with the county manager, we see no desire for us to own those properties, and the school should be allowed to sell those as surplus property. Anybody have any questions for either JR or Margaret or Brian or myself on this one?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions, more of a comment than a question.
Sure.
On it. I'm attached to this information or to this item was each one of the numbers and the value of all that property. And I think you're approaching $11.5–12 million for all 7 of those. And the only question I'd have with that, does the 100% of that sale of those items, all of them, does that money remain to the school board's budget, or do they have to, I guess the rule, and I'm just guessing here, they'd have to reinvest it in schools, or what happens to the money, I guess is the question.
All right, Keith, are you still on?
I am.
Okay, jump on that one, son.
All righty. What we would do is we would put the revenues into our capital fund. And then, of course, our capital fund, we would, of course, present projects to the board and you, the county commissioners, for approval on those projects. But the revenues would go into our capital funds.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, did we have any communication with BDI? Was there any commercial or industrial interest in any of these locations that would be of any value to us?
We did have some conversation with Alan. Alan, are you still there? All right, we did. Brian, are you
I'm
still
here.
there? Okay,
I'm here.
can you relay what? Oh, Alan, go ahead and talk about our conversations and what we thought about some of those properties.
There is some possible interest in the Rutherford College project for residential development. And there's actually have some folks that are taking a look at that, getting a notional site plan for us. And once we get that, we'll have a little more detail. That's really the only one that we have looked at.
So is that something you could work with the school board on, or is that the way that would fly?
Since the first county has the first right of refusal, and then after that, we would work with them on that distribution of the property.
Okay, so does it make sense we defer on that piece, or should we think otherwise?
Yeah, you would have to defer on it before any other action could take place. Now, if I wouldn't know the process as far as if you wanted to direct them to have conversations with us on that, or exactly how that would have to occur.
You got an answer for that, Keith, or any thought process?
I do not know the legal ins and outs of how that would play out. Sorry.
JR, any thoughts?
Well, once we have passed on the property, it becomes the school board's to do what they wish with it. So if the county has a use for it, your time is now. Like I say, the school board may have plans. They may have people who are already interested in talking to them about it, and they may be the same people that Alan are dealing with. But your influence over what happens with the property ends when you pass this resolution.
All right, let me go back to Commissioner Britton. Jeff, do you think we should keep the Rutherford College property and work with BDI ourselves? Is that your intent?
That's my question. I guess maybe between now and our meeting time, if we could have some more detailed conversation, maybe with Alan and you know, whether or not that's an avenue we ought to pursue. If that's, I know that we've certainly been looking for ways to enhance housing. If this is a real viable opportunity, maybe it's something we should consider.
Alan, you feeling comfortable about that there could be a buyer for the property?
I'm not at the point where there is a buyer. We have had different people who have looked at the property. There is some interest there, residential. There's a lot of information we do not know whether they would try to reuse any of the existing structures or whether those would need to be demoed. As I say, there is work that's going on a notional site plan as to what that might look like and what the densities could be. We don't have that back yet. So, but do I have a buyer in my pocket today? No.
All right, Jeff, is your recommendation that we pull out the Rutherford College property and leave the remaining properties on, deny that, or say that we don't want the remaining properties, but leave the Rutherford College property on until next month till we can have further discussion? Is that what we're asking? Can we do that?
Is that feasible, JR?
Yeah, it's feasible. Now, if you withhold your consent on those properties, then the county and the Board of Education have to come to some agreement as to a fair price for the property. So it's not like if we withhold, we get it for free.
Right, I understand. Mr. Chairman, how would you feel about having some discussions with the school board folks and just kind of see if you can get any feel for this?
I can, certainly can. Me and the vice chair can sit down. We actually had to cancel one of our meetings, but we can set something else back up. So is it going to hurt anything if we take this off consent and just move the whole item up 30 days, JR?
It won't hurt. It won't hurt the county. I don't know if the school board has any time-sensitive plans for any of the other properties or not.
Can you answer that one, Keith?
Yes, sir. We have no immediate plans for any of the property with the exception of number one, the 0 Independence Boulevard property, which is a small sliver of property across the street from Freedom High School. The neighbor to the west of that property has expressed interest in purchasing that. And he is awaiting all of these processes to play out to have the opportunity to purchase that property.
Would 30 days kill your deal?
No, it certainly wouldn't.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, it's going to be my suggestion based on the conversations here that we've had today is that we, move this item to next month. All right. If anybody doesn't have any objection, we'll do a roll call to move this item to next month to allow us more time to sit down with the school personnel to see where we actually want to go with this. So our vote will be to move this to next month's agenda. Vice Chairman Moe?
Yes, I agree.
Chairman Abley, Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And I will vote yes also. So, okay, we'll move that up 1 month. Keith, we'll get back together and set up a date where we can talk about this soon, okay?
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All righty. Moving on, item number 6 is the Eastbourne Senior Center Advisory Committee reappointments and removals. At this time, I'll recognize Kay Drone, our clerk to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and audience members. This is a request to reappoint Norma Klein, seat number 1, and Karen Robinson, seat number 4, to the Eastbourne Senior Center Advisory Committee for 3-year terms ending May 31st, 2023, and to remove Gail Fulbright, who occupies seat number 7, and thank her for her service to the community. She is not interested in seeking reappointment.
All right, questions or comments for Kay on this matter? All right, hearing none, our roll call vote to leave this on the consent item agenda. Vice Chair Moe?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And I will vote yes also, Kay. So that's unanimous. Moving on to item number 7 is a finance audit contract for the fiscal year 1920 that will be presented by Margaret Pierce, our Deputy County Manager and Finance Director. Margaret?
Good afternoon. You've got within your packet the audit contract for the 1920 audit. This is presented with Loudermilk Church again, doing our audit. They are reducing their fee from current year by $3,000 for a contract of $41,700.
Questions for Margaret? Not hearing none, we'll do the roll call vote to leave this on the consent agenda. Vice Chair Bowie,
Yes.
Chair Bowie, okay. Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Mr. Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
Yes.
and I will vote yes also. That is unanimous. Moving on again to item number 8 is the county financial report for the period ending March the 31st, 2020. That will also be presented by Margaret. Margaret?
Okay, you have in front of you the financial report for the first 9 months of our fiscal year. Our revenues are at $73 million, which is at approximately 77% of the year, so that's slightly up for us. The expenditures are just under $67 million, which is at 71% for the year. So both are right in line with where we need to be at 75% of the year. A couple items I want to point out that we'll see going forward related to COVID would be we have some revenues that will be recognized within the next month. We're waiting on some documentation and further information. COVID funds from the CARES Act, we have $109,000 coming in because we do Medicare billing. The library will be receiving $2,000 grant. Health Department, you approved the $92,873. Senior centers should be receiving funds related to nutrition and senior meals, but we don't have a dollar amount on that yet. And then Senate Bill 704 that was approved Saturday, there's a allocation in there to counties. It does have various guidelines that we'll need to research further to know exactly what it can be spent on. It's a minimum of $250,000 per county, with an additional amount above that based on per capita. So we are pleased to know there are some funds coming in. None of these funds can be used at this point in time for revenue replacement. They need to be toward COVID-related expenses such as public health, PPE, and other items to protect the health and well-being of citizens and our employees.
All right, questions or comments from Margaret?
Mr. Chairman, Margaret, on page 88, you've got $4,387,363 that was used out of fund balance to balance the budget. Where are we now on the fund balance? How much do we have in the fund balance?
At this point in time, we won't have used any of those allocations until we won't know what we've used of those until the end of the fiscal year. And our hope is that we may not have to use very much of that. We ended last year at, I'll have to pull out the audit to get the number, but I believe it was in the neighborhood of 19 million.
So the amount is, I didn't hear you.
The amount from our last audit, I would have to pull out the audit to review, but we are hoping not to have to use too much of those funds. It all depends on it. We've controlled our expenses at this point. We are, of course, limited travel and other expenditures that can be related to the limitations of staff in, similar to what the schools and the community college have done. However, we have not had the amount of staff out of the office that they have, but we will see some expense reductions due to that. Right now, revenues, property tax revenues are well in target for the year, and sales tax as of February, which is the last numbers we have, is up approximately 7.5% over last year. We do not necessarily anticipate that to continue through the next 5 months, however, but we hope we'll know more. Unfortunately, not until July or August on sales tax, though.
So we don't have a figure, is what you're saying?
We can't have a figure until the year ends.
Well, I I found that a rather difficult to believe. Last year we had about 16 million, and we don't have an estimate of what our fund balance is today.
Fund balance won't change until the fiscal year's over and we're able to settle up all our expenses versus all our revenues. It doesn't really change but once a year when we finalize our books. We are estimating that we are hoping not to use the entire 4 million because some of it is related to projects that may be postponed due to the economic situation.
Okay, if we don't use the 4 million, what will it be?
I won't know until I know how many revenues we get in, which I won't have until September. It will depend on how much sales tax comes in particularly, but other state and federal revenues are going to affect that, such as these COVID funds.
So you're telling me if Raleigh wrote us a letter and wanted to know what your fund balance is, we would not have a number to give them?
I can't have a number. The state can't have a number either. Governments don't have that but once a year until it's all settled, when our books are settled.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
One question, Margaret, under your revenues, you had miscellaneous revenues were showing 140,199 ahead. Any recollection what that's all about?
It's interest income that was well above projections for the first part of the year. We were able to see some rates even close to 2% before March. Those rates have significantly dropped, and what investments we have are being called so that they can reinvest at a much lower rate. We were up significantly in interest income.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. The second page of your report is the enterprise funds, and again, both of those are where they need to be for the year to date. Revenues, water, sewer, and expenditures are below budget, and we hope to keep it that way, although there will be some more expenditures for some maintenance repairs they're hoping to do in the coming months. Solid waste is running slightly above in revenues, but that's normal due to the fact that a portion is collected on property tax bills. That's all I have.
Any other questions or comments from Margaret? Gentlemen, I encourage you to go on the NCACC website and look at the legislative update where the governor signed the bills this week for House Bill 1043 and Senate Bill 704. NCACC will give you a detailed explanation of the $1.57 billion that will be expended throughout the counties in North Carolina. As Margaret said, we will get a baseline of $250,000, $250,000 guaranteed, plus there will be a distribution above that amount up to the $1.57 billion based on the population of each one of the counties. And you'll get a detailed report of how that $1.57 billion will be expended, the necessary paperwork that needs to come in on some of the money that the counties will be in charge of to make sure it's allocated out to the municipalities. So it's about a 7-page document, and I encourage you to go take a look at that as soon as you can. Then if you have any questions or anything, you can get with Brian or Margaret about those two bills that were passed over the weekend. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote to keep on the consent item agenda. Vice Chairman Moley?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
No.
And I will vote yes. That'll be 4-1 with Commissioner Taylor dissenting. Moving on to item number 9 for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council will be the approval of the county plan for the Burke County and funding allocation. I saw AJ come on and I saw Rebecca's on. Which one of you is going to do this one?
I get to do this one, Mr.
All right, Rebecca.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've come to you this afternoon just to put before you our annual plan that we need approval for fiscal year 2021, and also the annual funding allocations for 2021. If you remember, the juvenile crime prevention councils are the ones who have the plans for the needs of the adjudicated and at-risk youth here in Burke County. And the funding does come from the Department of Public Safety of Juvenile Justice. This upcoming year, with the Raise the Age funds, in addition to what they normally allocate for Burke County, they're looking to give us $287,074. And of that, there is a 44% match that each of the programs have to put forth, either in kind or with cash. And there is no county funding necessary. The annual plan, which has all those pages that you've had to look at, it mandates the requirements that we have to, as a local JCPC, put forth throughout the year. We have to look at the risk and needs. We have to make determinations based off of the gaps in services. And then we have to meet and allocate the funds based off those needs and those gaps. The document plan also includes the required documentation of who all is a member, the dates, the attendance, and then it also puts forth what each of the programs have asked for allocations that our local JCPC has already approved. So what we're asking today is for you to approve the 2021 county plan for Burke County and also the 2021 annual funding allocation. Further, if you can authorize the county manager and or the county finance director to process any revisions to the FY 2021 plan administratively, and to authorize the chairman to execute the allocation on behalf of the board. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. Questions for Rebecca? All right, hearing none, and we'll now do a roll call vote to leave this on the consent item agenda. Vice Chairman Moy.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley.
Yes.
Commissioner Britton.
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor.
Yes.
And I will vote yes also, Kay. All righty. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank y'all.
All right, let's move on to item number 10 is the tax collection report for April 2020 presented by our tax administrator, Danny Eisenhower. Danny?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity. As usual, I'll start sort of at the bottom of the report here. Motor vehicle tax, we've collected at 89.10%. Property tax, we're just over 100%, and this is a budget, 109. Together, those two go into our current year taxes, which we're at 99.4% collected. Delinquent taxes were 110.16% collected, and late list penalties were at 142.76% collected. The overall levy, when you look at just real and personal property, not including motor vehicles, we're at 97.34% collected.
All right, questions for Danny on the tax collection report?
Looks good.
All right. All right, Danny, let's move on to the release refund report.
Okay. We had releases in the amount of $2,981.34. Of this, none of it was rebilled, so we ended up with that net release of $2,981.34. We had refunds in the amount of $727.66. And then on motor vehicles, we have refunds in the amount of $135.35.
All right, questions for Danny on this report? All right, hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote for both of these reports for the tax collection and the release refund. Vice Chairman Moy.
Yes.
Commissioner Abley.
Yes.
Commissioner Britton.
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor.
Yes.
And I will vote yes also, Kay, so that'll be unanimous. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, item number 6 is our items for decision. The first one will be the presentation of the recommended budget for 2021 and scheduling of public hearings, and that will be presented by County Manager Brian Steen. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, the budget's still being developed for the next year, so I will present that to you at our regular meeting.
All right, any questions for Brian at this time? All right, hearing none, we will do a roll call vote to leave this on for items for decision. Vice Chair Moe,
Yes.
Commissioner Abley,
Yes.
Mr. Britton,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
and I will vote yes also. That will be unanimous, okay? Moving on to item number 2 is from our Human Relations Department regarding the creation of animal services enforcement positions, and that will be presented by Ms. Rhonda Lee, our HR Director. Hey, Rhonda.
Hey there, how are you?
Great.
Great, great. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. The request that you have before you is basically, the request came from the sheriff. The responsibility of Burke County Animal Control be placed under the county manager's office, similar to the Animal Service Center. The request that we're asking for is to go ahead and authorize 3 new full-time positions that will be under the county manager's office. These positions will include an animal services enforcement supervisor, one of those, and then 2 animal services enforcement officers. The actual cost of all these will be in the county manager's recommended budget. And this is to ensure a smooth transition from the sheriff's office responsibility of the animal services control folks over to the county manager's control and authority. And we're asking that this be approved a little prematurely so we can go ahead and get these jobs advertised and have people ready to come on board July 1. And there are 2 job descriptions that were attached to the agenda abstract, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
All right, gentlemen, you've heard Rhonda's presentation. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have several. We have discussed this on several occasions, and we have yet, as far as I know, we have not voted as a board to relieve the sheriff of this duty. And I'm a little questionable about this item being before us today. The thing that bothers me more than anything else is that I feel like if the sheriff can't control and can't run the animal shelter, you know, you look at who would have the authority to do it. We also asked the question, and as far as I know, we've never got the answer. How many counties around us have somebody besides the sheriff department running the animal control? And the thing that bothers me the most is that we're getting ready to put our county manager in charge of animal control, and he's so much more valuable in many other areas, and I'm wondering if that's smart on our behalf. And if this is such a negative for the sheriff's department, then I think the county commissioners need to be aware that, you know, you're going to get a whole lot more calls than you've been getting on the negative side of animal controls and what's wrong with it and what's right with it. And if so many, and I think we need to include all this in discussion. I think I'd hoped for some time that we'd get together with the sheriff and with us and ask and resolve a lot of the questions that I have, why he needs to get this out from under his directions. I'm afraid, quite honestly, we're going to create an ongoing, constant headache for the chairman, for the Board of Commissioners, and for our county managers and personnel with a move like this. I'd like more information before I voted on this. And I've asked those questions heretofore several times. And the other question, the other comment I had was, do we add 3 more employees at our cost? And I think we can get a possibility. What does grade 22 and grade 19 get paid? What's the starting salary and what's the top salary? And we get an idea of what you're adding to the budget. And does the sheriff lose 3 personnel in making this move? Because he is obviously 3 people he has hired to run it will no longer be there. One of them I know is retiring. And that's, I don't know how many questions that was, Johnny, but it's probably too many.
No. Brian, you want to say anything here?
Yes, sir. This is kind of a vote on whether or not the sheriff keeps these positions and responsibility or not. When we had to take over the operation of the shelter itself, we did this about the same thing that we're looking at right here for those positions, because we have no idea how long it's going to take to recruit and get somebody in. I think the sheriff has 4 actual enforcement positions, and we are asking only for 3, and they are at lower pay grades than what sworn deputies, and there's one's a lieutenant and there's one's a sergeant, and then it may be 2 deputies. So that part of it would be less costly. And the matter about the positions being moved over to new places in the sheriff's department is something that is in the process of being evaluated as I do the budget. So I'm not really in a position to give a definite answer on that. I'll be able to do that, though, when we have the recommended budget. Of course, the recommended budget is just a starting point for the commissioners to consider what will be and what won't be in the actual adopted budget. So again, we're looking at a timing and be able to do this if the board is interested. I know the sheriff has on multiple occasions gone on and on and on about wanting out of this, just as he did in the operation of the actual shelter internal operation. So I don't know if that covers the gambit of questions, but that's kind of why we are here. Whatever the board would like to do, we will certainly do our best for you.
On behalf of the vice chair, myself, and the vice chair can speak when I finish, the sheriff has been quite adamant and almost to the point of raising his voice that he no longer wants to do the enforcement of animal control. He has been more than adamant about he does not want to do that. I think that we, as the county commissioners, we have had more complaints probably about his officers, and I feel like if we put our own officers in there, that we'll have, my personal opinion is we'll have less complaints, because we have documented complaints against his officers. If the sheriff wants to keep those officers that he has 6 vacancies or 7 vacancies. Which one is it, Rhonda? 6 or 7 right now, vacancies in his department. If he wants to keep those officers and move them over those vacancies, more power to him. Take them on over there and put them to work as deputy sheriffs, because they are sworn. So if he wants to put them in them vacant positions, I say more power to him. God bless him. Take them on. I could care less what he does with those officers over there. The time is here for us to take charge of this animal shelter, which we already have. Now it looks like it's time to take care of animal control, which this sheriff is not going to do, because he said he doesn't want it. Vice Chair, add on there before I get excited.
Well, I think you summed it up pretty well. He has been repeatedly over the last year very expressive about wanting out of it and wanting out of that responsibility. And as Maynard said, we may tick up in complaints a little bit, being directly responsible. But on the other hand, the way I look at it, if I'm going to receive complaints, I at least want to have some type of control if we're having problems. At this point, there's nothing we can do. We've been hampered in our ability to respond. And so if it falls under the purview of our county manager, we've got a lot more sway and control on how it's run on a day-to-day basis and answer these things. So, that's just my opinion.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, what you just said was that the tail is wagging the dog and you're going to let him. And that is not what.
I'm not letting that sheriff do anything. I made my point real clear, Maynard, that he said that he didn't want to do that. And I want you to be sure that you heard us tell everybody here today. He said, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Do you know what the sheriff's job is and duties are? Does it include the animal shelter?
Not the shelter. It includes animal enforcement.
Well, is Rhonda still there? Rhonda,
Yeah, I'm still here, sir.
what is the starting grade level of the grade 19 employee? And
Okay, the grade 19 is 33,661, and the maximum is 52,188 for the grade 19. The grade 22 is 8,970. That's the minimum, and the max.
I didn't hear the number. You broke up on me.
Okay, which one? The 22?
Yeah, the start on 22.
Okay, it's 38,970 is the start for 22, and the max is 60,403. And Commissioner Taylor, Kay had sent kind of a summary a couple of weeks ago to me in some of her research that it looks like approximately about 17 other counties have that either animal services or animal control under a different department. That would be maybe health department, the county managers, or a combined group of departments. There's one that's under general services.
Well, I think I appreciate that. That gives me an average of what we're looking at for 2 employees, and the other employee we already have hired. But you're saying 17 out of 100 counties, somebody besides the sheriff department is in charge of the animal shelter, right?
I'd say approximately, yes. Yes, sir. And just to be clear, none of these positions are hired. This request is for 3 positions, and there's nobody sitting in those positions. They've not been created yet.
So what grade would be what is the grade of the 3rd employee?
Oh, there would be 2 under the grade 19.
2 under, okay.
Yeah, 2 under 19 and 1 under 22.
Okay.
And those are not sworn positions like the sworn positions are over there right now, correct?
That's correct.
Well, Mr. Chairman, what I'm trying to do is to have y'all think before you act. And when you think that we have for years had an animal shelter under the direction of the sheriff, whether it was the one we have now or those in the past. And what we hear as commissioners, what I hear, I'm not going to speak for y'all, but these people who do it because they love it and get no money do a better job than we can do when we're paying out. And I can see right quick that we're going to add $150,000, $200,000 to the cost of animal control. And the biggest concern I have is I don't see somebody outside the sheriff's a deputy being able to have the authority and the means and the backup. One thing you do get that I think we're forgetting with the sheriff, if he needed 2 or 3 other, if he needed assistance, he would have them to assist, especially in a dangerous situation where we would not have any more than the 3 that we're talking about at this. I just have to vote no. I don't think we have. I don't think we've had the meetings that we talked about having. I don't think we've got the information we wanted. To me, it's just premature And the first thing we should have done is had a meeting to decide the pros and the cons of whether the sheriff retained this or not, and we never did have that meeting.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just comment. I think we are going down the right trail here with our taking responsibility for the shelter. We now have two different entities that don't always have the same goals in mind, and I think it'll be a positive for our county and for our citizens to move forward with bringing all this under one management and one direction.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other comments?
Connie, I'll just make one. Jeff, I appreciate your opinion, but you have no facts, no figures whatsoever to back up that opinion. It's just a matter of you think it's a good deal.
Okay, any other comments? All right, we'll do a roll call vote to leave this on for a decision item. Vice Chair Mulway,
Yes.
Commissioner Agley,
No.
Commissioner Britton,
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor,
No, sir.
and I will vote yes. So that is 3-2 with Commissioner Agley and Commissioner Taylor voting no. Got that, Kay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I don't see any reports or anything that need to be brought before us at this present time. The other discussion items we have for today, gentlemen, if you will, remember the date, May the 20th. NCACC County Commissioners Association is going to attempt to do a county assembly day. That could be a possible virtual meeting. It may be by Zoom, so we will have to wait to see how they intend to do that. We do have a budget meeting scheduled for May the 22nd at 2 p.m. That will be a possible Zoom meeting also. Our offices will be closed on May the 25th in observance of Memorial Day. And then we have a budget meeting scheduled for May 28th at 2 p.m. And that also may be a meeting. I want to remind you, all staff here with us today, that today, Tuesday, May the 5th, is Teacher and School Appreciation, or School Staff Appreciation Day. And I think everybody in the school system deserves that gratitude that they deserve. They've been resilient during some very strange times with the COVID-19 process that we're going through right now. And on this special day, the state has asked us to show our appreciation for teachers and school staff by displaying a light or some other object in your window at 8:20 p.m. tonight. At that time was chosen for us to do that. So if you will, display a light in your window. Again, the state thanks you for lighting the way to learning for all of our North Carolina students. This time I will entertain a motion to adjourn if nothing else needs to come before us.
So move.
All right, we've got a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Mulway?
Yes.
Commissioner Abley, yes?
Yes.
Commissioner Britton?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. Thank you so very much.